Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina, I'm the host here, and my guest today is from Brazil, Luiz Fernando Ribeiro. Hi, Luiz.
Hello, Irina. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to have your invitation. I'm flattered.
Thank you. No, I love having you here. So we got introduced by Eric Koslowski, and Eric and I became friends on Instagram. And so right before your interview, I texted him and I was like, guess who I'm having over tomorrow? And he sent me the whole, basically like historical facts of fiber arts in Brazil, going back to 15th century and all the colonizers from like Portugal and Dutch and French and Spanish and all the influences of that. And so I learned a lot from him. Thank you, Eric, if you're listening. I wanted to ask you, like, do you feel like it's in every, like, do you see that influence all the time? Are you aware of that, like, of all different cultures being melted in Brazil and having its own influence in the fiber arts of Brazil?
I am not really never thought of that. Although our country, as you told, comes from this mixture of Italians and Spanish and Portuguese, mainly Portuguese and Italian, but also in the southern part of the country, German colonization and some Japanese as well. We have the largest Japanese colony outside Japan here in Sao Paulo. But until I began with this fiber thing, and I'm not sure that knitting was this sophisticated as we see nowadays. And with the internet, with the changing of information, changing of all this melting pot that has become the internet, we have only recently been aware of fine products, with lace products, with mohair, with cashmere, because before that, it was very common that knitting, mainly knitting, but also crocheting, was a grandma's thing.
Right.
And we've seen this been changing for the last 20 years or so. More and more people are knitting, more and more younger people are knitting. So, but I'm thinking, as a child was before that, all we see is people, mainly ladies, knitting sweaters for their nephews, grandsons, granddaughters, or scarves, or maybe a beanie or a hat. But all this intricate lacing or shawls, I think it's a more recent thing here in Brazil.
Well, you started knitting basically on a dare, from what I've heard, that somebody challenged you to knit a sweater and you decided why not, even though you never knitted before, right?
Yeah, it was this foolish young adult person or talk or chat saying things. Oh, this is a man's thing. This is a woman's thing. And I see, everything can be man's thing or women's thing. And just give me one thing that women would do better or would do and men could not do as good as, and I'll prove you wrong. And he said, wow, knitting. I said, teach me how to knit and I'll prove you wrong. And the first piece I ever did, it was at the age of 20 something, maybe 21. She taught me how to knit, and I needed a sweater and it had snowflakes. It not only a sweater, but a sweater with some sort of, or intarsia or maybe color work.
Right.
And it was quite nice. It gave me true pleasure, and also I passed for the first mistake all first knitters do is do not buy the sufficient amount of knitting. So I had a color with a different dye lot,
Right.
and it was slightly different. Green was slightly different. And I learned that from that. I always say, buy enough, buy more.
Right.
We accept, we can change here in our store. Buy 10. If you do not use 2 balls, we exchange for anything you want. But don't suffer that because it's painful.
Do you, like, I mean, what I'm hearing, right? You're jumping in something completely new to yourself, and you're going for like, you're not going for a little scarf, or like usually people go for something little square. You're going for a sweater with intarsial color work or whatever. Like, is that your approach to knitting until today? Is there anything scares you in knitting, or you just jump first and think later?
Nothing scares me, and when I teach, I give private classes. When someone comes to me and I ask, "What do you want?" I want to knit a beanie. I want to knit some socks, but I do not know how to knit. So it's better if I knit a scarf, and I say no. If you want to knit a socks, that's what you're going to learn. Of course, you have to practice to knit and to purl and to SSK and to knit together. But do what you were wishing to do, because make no mistake with that, you are going to do something wrong. And knitting and unknitting is part of the process as well. So if you want to knit a hat, let's say a hat, and you're just practicing for the scarf, the first difficulty you have, you will give up and you put aside and you frog that for a couple of months or maybe forever. Right. So I teach what you want to learn. So it's sort of encouraging for you not to give up.
Right.
That's my thought.
Before we started the interview, you shared with me that like one of your things that you do in your store is you help others to chase those runaway stitches in lace. Like when somebody is dropping a stitch, you help to find that missing one. What was your progress in knitting? Like you went from that sweater to the point when you teaching others, you an instructor, you giving talks. Like, what was that journey like?
It was actually I was asleep in that matter for maybe 10, 15 more years after that. And only when we started to have this store, this yarn shop, is that by looking, by hearing, by practicing, by training, and that's something, because when the pattern is a little too repetitive, I fall asleep, and I say literally, I have fallen asleep with my 2 yarns here watching TV and for a couple of hours. But I enjoy the puzzle solving. And this week came a lady and she wants to have a poncho. It's very unusual people here to knit ponchos, but she didn't want a top down and she didn't want a bottom up. She wanted a sideways because she bought some very mixed colored yarn here, and also she didn't want any points. She wouldn't be round in the bottom. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, just be aware, we are new with that. We are creating So be prepared to, the solutions would not be so appropriate for that. But, and that's what moves me to try to find new techniques or new ways of doing things. And I say, when can it be done in knitting? As everything can be done in knitting. If you don't know, we have to look how to do it. But everything is possible, and that's what thrills me. That's what I have passion for that. So when you have this drop, run stitch, this 10, 15 rows, or even when I'm blocking for some customers, I have dropped many shawls now, and not rarely when I start stretching and stretching and stretching, and I look, okay, whoa, and there was this one single stitch that has fallen. And when you have shawl and have lace shawls, it's a little bit more intricate to re-knit it. But I have a couple of pictures there, and I always say and put pictures of that and show them. Oh, I have an open heart surgery here now.
Funny because there's this group on Facebook. It's called Fine Shetland Lace Group, and that's where Christina actually and I met. So one time we were knitting a shawl. I think it was Esha by Monique, and we had a knit along.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And this lady finished her shawl, blocked it, only to see stitches running in every single direction in front of her eyes while she was trying to block it. And she was absolutely heartbroken. She cried. She was like,
I imagine.
at the end of the shawl, right? You were blocking and suddenly it's like all going to hell. And then she took a bunch of pins and she started catching those runaway stitches. And she's like, I can't deal with it right now. I need to take a break. I need to go have a drink, and then I'll come back to that and I'll see what I can do. And eventually it took her like some time to even come back to that, because she just couldn't like deal with the whole heartbreak of that situation. But then she came back to it, and it took her like a few hours, but she fixed it and nobody would know. Like if anybody looked at that shawl, you wouldn't be able to find it, you know? So it's like there is a certain thrill of going into a situation like this and actually being able to fix it eventually, you know?
Yeah, that's, and you're right. This girl's right. Sometimes just put aside, just cool down, just slip over, and yeah, that's the way. That's the way. And it's even better than meeting is fixing this and you say, see this, it's flawless. Yes, and I had to re-knit it, and I had to solve something. Or even some clients, some customers come here because they just tear apart, and then it's a nail or something, wearing a shawl, it gets stuck in a chair and a run thread. And it's also possible to just go to the way the original yarn was. So that's something I like it.
What pushed you to open the store to start with?
We've been with the store for 16 years now. And Chris was doing as a labor therapy. He was embroidering, or maybe tapestrying. He went to a store to buy some yarn, very thick, 100% wool yarn. And he spent quite a big amount of money there. And he said, wow, I was treated so terribly. Maybe we should try to open something like that. And as a new way of income, because he used to work for a company in the financing department, and I was a flight attendant for Varig, a Brazilian airline that went bankrupt some 15 years ago. And we start searching for ideas to run a business. And I said, well, we could do something that it's really unique. It doesn't have here in Brazil. It's everything that is handcraft. It's some sort of similar, even though it's painting or embroidering or everything that it's made of, with maybe with yarns, with needles, and we decided to put all together. So when we began, we had a knitting, we had crocheting, we had painting, we had decoupage, we had tapestry, and we had also oil painting, and everything that is handcraft would be something that we would like to. And also, I've never seen this outside Brazil, but before here, normally you go to a yarn shop and I want to buy some merino, and you just go to the shop and you look, can I see that yarn? And the employee would pick and would pick this yarn and show you, and if the okay, oh, I like, can I see that green? And she would return to this. You almost couldn't touch it. Right. And it's unbelievable. It's something you're going to wear. You have to touch it. You have to feel. You have to look in the mirror. Just put the yarns here to see. Oh, I look good in this color, or doesn't match with me, or even feel on your skin. And so that's something we did. Is it's all open. There's no counters between and it doesn't matter if this person buys one yarn or doesn't buy anything and wants to see the whole shelf. Maybe she decided for nothing right now, but maybe later. And one other thing is that as customers, you deserve to be well treated. You deserve to be welcomed, and that's something we like. That's, I think, is one of our marks here, because we salute, we kiss, and we hug, and we welcome, and we offer coffee and tea, and we also have a small restaurant here in our store as well. So know, people
like you take hospitality on a different level, like you serve them
right food. Right. And maybe because of my previous job, but that's what people deserve, to be well treated, and people like to be well treated. So that was something that was not common at that time. And because of my traveling to Europe and to the US and elsewhere, is that I began to look yarn shops in Portugal and in Germany, and wow, they have so many different yarns, shapes, textures, and fibers. And here in Brazil, most of our fibers were acrylic, or if with some 30–40% of wool.
Right.
And then we decided, and we start contacting some companies abroad until we met Lang Yarn from Switzerland, and we've been with them for over 10 years now, and very nice quality, very good price, and very welcoming as well.
Right. It's interesting because, like, again, Eric mentioned that Brazil is like one of the biggest suppliers of wool, but you send all the raw wool basically abroad and you don't have much in the yarn stores, local yarn stores. It's mostly like acrylic.
It's only for the past decades, I think, that we have herds. And we have wool, but normally regular wool, not merino wool, not maybe Korea Dahlia, and maybe other brands of. And we also have lots of cotton, and cotton here is very, very cheap. So and of a certain quality, but the processing here is not as wonderful as those from Egypt or from Turkey, let's say, or maybe from Europe. So cotton here is very inexpensive, but wool only now we have, and our market cannot supply for the whole merino needs that we feel right now. So some of the fibers, natural fibers, are imported.
Right. Do you feel like it helps you to choose like what you're gonna sell in the store because you're a fiber artist? You know exactly like what's good, what's not, the quality of tools.
On the contrary, actually, we always laugh because they say, "Oh, let's see this. Oh, I don't like this. This is awful. It's gonna sell." Normally, it's like this. Unbelievable. Normally, I'm very narrow in things that I really personally like. Uh, I like merino. I like mohair. I like very thin threads, lace, but people like boucles, people like frizzles, people like furs,
Right.
and it's on the contrary. But we always pay attention to what they are asking for, and we try to look for that, or we see what the market is offering right now. And with Lang yarns, they have a huge variety of products that can, although indie and very local producers are right hyping worldwide, and Lang is a over 150-year-old company, and it's huge, but they are well aware of that, and they also are very serious in quality and all that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, no, normally I would be a bad picker of tendencies for the market because
Right. Well, tell me about your love of lace. So you need nibbling.
yes, yeah, as we were briefing before, that's think not only about nibbling, but also, for example, of a Zimmerman. It's a different style, but what I like and what I stand up and clap my hands is the creativity of being maybe the first ones to develop a new technique, a new way of thinking, knitting. But nibbling, the thing I like the most is not only the patterns are so beautiful and so brilliant, but thinking that he lived in the 20th century, he has passed away a couple of decades, several decades maybe, but with no computer, no internet, maybe a typewriter. And he would sit and observe nature and would write his patterns by, it's amazing. and drawing flowers and leaves and different shapes of the same leaves, like in nature. No leaves like the other, and it's amazing. But he also, as you know, he always did tablecloth.
Right.
And I always say, why should a table be wearing more graceful than more beautiful than a woman? So I decided I tried the first one to cut in half or maybe 2/3 of his pattern. And I was quite happy to that. And also because in doing that, so I would have to find uh, uh, some solutions for finishing as a shawl that he would have not thought, because he wanted a tablecloth.
Right. It's interesting. I was interviewing Anne Junsen, and she is a Shetland lace. She does Shetland lace, like, and she does Fair Isle, but like she's famous for her Shetland lace. And she was telling me a story of like when she was a little girl, she went to school and her first pattern that she learned was bird eye, which is like considered one of the hardest Shetland lace patterns, right? And the reason for that was because her mother couldn't read patterns. She couldn't, like, she could only like look at knitting and replicate the knitting. So she wanted, and her teacher knew the bird eye pattern. So she wanted Anne to go to school, learn the bird eye, bring it back home so she could look at the actual knitting and learn how to do that. And to me, this is like mind bending, you know, that you can like read lace like that you can just look at knitting and figure it all out immediately instead of, and it's easier than to read the pattern, you know, it's like, to me, it's like absolutely mind blowing.
Uh-huh. Yes. When a customer comes to me willing to learn something, we normally take over an hour of talking and scrapping and writing down things, because that's one thing I always say: you have to understand. You have to visualize where you're going to in order to do it easier. Not only replicating row by row,
Right.
row one, row two. Do not do that. It's boring, and you're going to make more mistakes. I have this old lady here. He was knitting a shawl by a Brazilian knitter called Aloisio Santos. He does beautiful shawls, and it was sort of lace. Did you see there was a mistake here? Oh yes, it was 100. It was supposed to have. I was supposed to have 200 stitches on the needle. I had 199, so I added one at the end. Okay, number is correct, but the pattern is
Right, the whole thing
is
went
blown up.
right.
I mean, you cannot do that. And in order to do that, just not only knit what it's written, see where you're knitting, see where you're going, because knitting is, most of the time, knitting is very clear. SSK is SSK one stitch, and the next row is SSK one stitch ahead. Two together is one stitch before. So learn and see what that, and most likely you need faster even that.
It's funny because like when I first started, like one of the first Shetland lace shawls I made was Love Darg by Sharon Miller, and it's like one of the hardest patterns out there. So there was a knit along, and I decided to jump right in, even though like I didn't know much about Shetland lace at that point. So I was reading the pattern and I was like stumbling, and I didn't know if it was my mistakes or if it was the mistakes in the pattern. And I kept asking that. And then one lady who's been like knitting all her life, she told me, forget about mistakes, just read the lace. And it was such an eye-opening concept at that point. And I think like that sentence, right, made it possible for me to become a Shetland lace knitter. Like, so now it's like when I knit lace, I see those mistakes immediately. Like I see something doesn't line up. Whereas before I would have to go to the end of the row to realize I'm missing a stitch, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's becoming like an acquired skill to just like read the lace, read what you're doing, read your knitting.
Right, right. Yeah, understand what you're doing is a better way to do it a fine job.
Right. Well,
Not only knitting.
let me ask you
Yes.
something though. You're teaching people, you have a store, right? So that comes with certain level of authority. Like people expect a certain level of expertise from you. Do you ever feel like you're not qualified to give that advice? Do you ever feel like, you know, you're not an expert?
I always I'm very opinionated most of the time, so I just give my opinion about everything, but not that I'm right most of the time. But knitting wise, I've come to a point that I've seen, or I know how to, although I haven't done a whole thing of that project. But I love puzzle solving. But it came up the last 2 weeks ago. Came up this lady, and she wanted to have a class, and she came for the class. And only when she came, she told me she wanted to make it was not a sweater, it's a blouse maybe, or a t-shirt, but in crochet. And actually, I do not crochet. I know how to, I can teach you, but I never do that.
Right.
It's something that I'm not too fond of. But I could sit with her with the help of Chris. Chris does crochets, and we could do it because I know how to, and I just choose not to do it. And even though if I do not have the solution, and that's something, I do not have the solution for everything, but I know where to find the answers for that. And with the internet, with a mobile in your hand, I mean, there's no excuse for not seeking for solutions for that. So that's how I basically act with when there's something new or something that I do not know.
Well, let's talk about your schedule, because the store is one thing, but then you have the restaurant, and then you're brewing beer, and then you bake. Like when you do all of these things and knit on top of it, how do you balance your life?
That's why I have several frog projects here. I always motivate the customers. Oh, let's do a knit along, and I always start, but never finish. But and it's not only for selling purposes; it's for pleasure, and for helping them if they're stuck in a certain part of the project. Esha was I came with Christina came here. There's no way I understand that. I asked some people and they could not explain me that. And there's sort of it was so certain it would be like a spider legs. There's one of the two patterns, which is incredible. They're incredible. I love it, and it is crazy that every small square is totally different from the other one. That's something I like it. It's not boring. Actually, I like beer, so I decided once to brew. I brew a couple of beers for my 50th birthday. We made 5 different styles and maybe some 40 bottles of each. But it's been quite a while. I haven't brewed anything. The store is open from 10 to 5 p.m. and so is the restaurant. 10 to 5:30 p.m. So is the restaurant. The restaurant works for customers because it's open for the public, but it's not a really a traditional restaurant. It's a knitting shop. That's one thing we like this big table, so you can sit with others, you can chat, you can exchange experience. And it's also nice for restaurants as well, because you sit in the same table as a complete stranger. It's a bit awkward here in Brazil, because Brazilians like to birds of a feather flock together. They do not want to mix with others, but that's something we like, knowing who we don't know, knowing about things we don't know. That's the experience of exchanging, talking. And so the restaurant works, it works in the same hours as the, and we also have delivery, but it's not as strong as it's supposed to be yet, because we are not focusing on that. Although during the pandemic, during the lockdown, it was only our way of surviving for that period of time.
Well, do you have anything about the store that you don't like? Is there like a least favorite part of running the store?
Actually, I don't think so. I like what I do. I've been lucky. I have always done things I like, and by doing that, I have always doing it with truth. I'm not only here for selling. I'm for selling and for the fun of it, and for and the customers celebrate their birthdays here. They bring cakes and they celebrate our birthdays here, and that's what we like. I think I'm fortunate for doing this things that I've been enjoying doing, and we are very frank and with customers. A customer does not always have reason, but that's okay. It's part of the job. Taking some actions and doing some things that are not as pleasant is part of the package. It comes with a package, bonus and onus.
Like, is there any brand of yarn that like you really would love to have for your store, but you cannot get in Brazil? Like, is there some dream yarn dyers or something that you would love to have in your store?
Let me think. Well, nowadays here in our store, we work with Lang Yarns, and we work with a very good friend of ours, Marco Righi, and he runs a very small business in the southern part of Brazil, in Rio Grande do Sul, and he dyes his own yarn. It comes with it's very artisanal, it's very handmade, and it's indie. I would say I would love to, and it's in the project. It's for the future. Propiedad de la Santa Mujer in Spain. The guys there, they do a nice work, and they work with mohair, which I love. And there are several beautiful yarns, but I've never thought of it that much, actually. Thing. Yeah, well, and it's incredible because there are so many small producers of fine yarns. So, and things we haven't even heard of here in Brazil, because no one thinks of Brazil as a knitting country. There's this truth and false idea that this is a hot, warm, sunny country. Although we summer's on the corner. We are, well, actually, it's actually hot, but not as hot as other years. But from São Paulo to the south, it's quite cold, and we don't have this heating system that Europe or the US or Japan has. So it's cold. It's not as cold as, not cold for having snow, but cold because we have no insulation.
Right. Well, where do you see your store going like 5 years from now? Do you have any like plans, ideas of what you're gonna do, how you're gonna change something, or you think it's just gonna stay the same and building the same community?
It's a good question. Actually, this pandemic was put on a hold for everywhere, for everybody, every business. So it was sort of tough on us because we work on a daily basis of importing yarns, and also for customers to come here and eating. Although we could sell it online, but it's what we like is people come in here. And for the last 2 years, that was not possible. But thank God we haven't had any major step back with our clients, with us. We're all safe and sound. But and some customers from other states says you should open a store here. You should open a store in Paraná, in Curitiba. You should open a store in Rio or maybe in Rio Grande do Sul. But we are only one, and the store is us. The store has our looks because we are here, because we attend, because we talk, because we need. And so we are reluctant in thinking of that. I know it's bad for the business, but I always remind of a film. There was this small bookstore in New York. There was right by this huge super library, super bookstore, and I don't recall the name of the actress right now, but it was a fine. So sometimes I feel like that, remaining a little smaller, or growing bigger. I think being a big fish in a little pond is it's what we like.
Right. Well, are you planning on increasing your online sales? Like, is that something you try to concentrate on, like selling more online?
That's a plan for the future. We've been selling quite nicely online, but with the last 2 years, because we could not import because all companies elsewhere were shut down and were closed, so we had a problem with that.
Well, honestly, like I wish you all the best of luck in your business, and I would love to be in that store one day and have some meal and meet with you. It's like, it sounds like heaven, you know. It sounds like the place I'd like to visit one day.
Oh, I hope someday you can come here to Brazil. It will be a pleasure to meet person to person.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on my channel, Luiz. Really was.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for your confidence in Eric, and thank you for Eric for.
Thank you, Eric.
He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy.
I told him I should interview him also because he knows so much about the whole history of Brazil, you know, so that would be also interesting. So if you see him, tell him to do that.
I will soon. I will do so.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Irina.
Bye. Okay, hold on.